Yep. See it on my end. We are live. Let's go. I do not hear any music on my end. Aha, now I do. Let me mute it so I don't hear you twice. Perfect. Very. I love it. Perfect. Absolutely. Yeah, I dropped a message in Discord. See some folks in chat already, so that's super exciting. Let me send a message here. There we go. People have been done. I should say you have a co-host on this podcast typically, right? Oh, nice. Love that. Oh, sick. There we go. Heck yeah. Oh, yeah. Gonna be amazing. I hear the stream. Play music. Mhm. Oh, you know it. Thank you, Zach. Yeah, absolutely. Hello, I'm Ashley. Wonderful intro, Zach. Pretty much covered all there is to me. In huge baseball enthusiast all my life, and now I have the wonderful opportunity to work in a baseball video game. And then, of course, lastly, the most important, very big ice cream enthusiast. But I don't know if I can really have that title because I always pick the same flavor, which is cookies and cream. But it's okay. We love all ice cream, even though I always go cookies and cream, maybe the occasional, peanut butter or snickerdoodle. But that's where we are. Oh, can't go wrong. Cannot go wrong. Oh, absolutely. Yes. Oh, well, growing up, I was always a very sports-minded, athletic kid. I am the youngest of four. I do have an older twin sister. And my two older brothers are boys, they're my brothers. So my mom signed us up for all the quote unquote girly sports, if you will. I don't like saying that, but that was kind of like the perspective, in the early 2000s of gymnastics and ballet, soccer, which is universal regardless of how you might identify when you're growing up. But always a huge fan. And then as I got a little bit older in elementary school, just fell in love with, the top major sports in the States, being football and baseball. Got into hockey and basketball a little bit later in life. But I was just, baseball was the one that always really stuck with me a little bit more than the others. It also helps that my mom growing up was a huge baseball fan. She got a little bit out of it when she entered motherhood and had the responsibility of raising all of us. But as I was growing up and getting more interested, it brought her back into the baseball world. So a huge baseball mindset that just kind of took off once I truly almost rediscovered it in elementary school, early junior high, and it's been an awesome, awesome journey. So unfortunately, did kind of miss out on the '05 White Sox World Series. So the last time we were in it and then we won it. I at that time was almost 6 years old, so wasn't quite as big of a fan as I am, even though I did identify as a White Sox fan then. Didn't really have the pleasure of truly experiencing that in the moment. Didn't really get to be a super fan until about 10 to 12-ish years old. But that's kind of the story of how it all started. Oh no. Yeah, the question was, how did I get into being a baseball fan? And it all basically started with my mom, if not her father. Exactly. My favorite baseball team is the Chicago White Sox. I grew up in the southwest suburbs of the Chicagoland area, so South Side through and through. You know what, Zach? That's a little disrespectful. I'm kidding. It's just I always have to joke about it. I make so many jokes about the North Side versus the South Side rivalry. And more so, there's a lot of history that goes into Chicago, the city as a whole, before you even want to mention baseball. There's just been a lot of disproportionate societal, political, economic battles between the North Side, a richer side, a more wealthy side, more full of good side, versus the South Side, which hasn't been as fortunate but still has incredible people, incredible hard workers, and just an amazing community to be a part of. And then, of course, my papa, so my mom's dad, my mom's a White Sox fan. He was born and raised near the St. Louis border on Illinois, on the Illinois side. So he grew up a huge St. Louis Cardinals fan. Cardinals and Cubs are one of the biggest rivalries in all of baseball. So when he met my mom's mom, my Nana, and they relocated to the Chicago suburbs, he, as a Cardinals fan, refused to take his kids to Cubs games. He would not allow them to be Cubs fan, which is kind of ironic because my mom's two siblings did end up being Cubs fans, but he always took them to White Sox games. So my mom became a huge White Sox fan. I became a huge White Sox fan. So in addition of just the deep history of Chicago as a city, and who I pull for geographically where I grew up, and then of course just the lineage of Cardinals, White Sox baseball fandom in my family. Yeah. Oh my goodness. My favorite White Sox player for a long time was Yolmer Sanchez. He was just always very friendly, very admirable. He was always interacting with the crowd when I would go to games. He and Lucas Giolito, our starting pitcher at the time for many, many years, was also my favorite player. I had the opportunity to cover some of his Twitch streams during the pandemic when he was playing MLB The Show in a little players tournament. So it was really cool to cover your favorite player that's also playing your favorite game as you're writing about your favorite team. So all of that mixing together was wonderful. My favorite all-time White Sox player is Ken Griffey Jr., of course, White Sox legend. I kid, I kid. It's Frank Thomas, but currently my favorite player is Luis Roberts. Mhm. All right, Kirk Gibson. That's I've not heard many people say he has their favorite player, but interesting. What made him what makes him your favorite player? That would do it. Mhm. Yes, that's right. It's very, very cool. So 1989 World Series, Kirk Gibson on a hurt leg walking it off. I love that answer for your favorite baseball player. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So how I started with Southside Sox, take it back one more step, is I started college in 2018. Uh, Loved reading and writing as a passion. I started out as a health science and psychology double major. Took an English class my first year, and I was like, dang, I really miss having an English degree. So I bumped down my psychology major into a minor, and then picked up English major as my double major. And that's all to say that I just was missing more English-driven reading, writing, whatever I can do in my day-to-day life. But I was very adamant on Twitter. I would tweet like play-by-plays every single White Sox game. My sister even told me that one of our mutual friends had like muted my account because I was tweeting so much about the White Sox, which hurt me in real time. But looking back at it, I'm like, okay, maybe I didn't have to do a play-by-play per at bat, but I was just incredibly passionate about White Sox. I wanted to just, be a part of the narrative or contribute as part of the narrative as much as I could. So the owner, or I should say the current editor-in-chief at Southside Sox, actually reached out to me through Twitter in early 2019 and was like, hey, I see you. We want you. Would you like to write for us? And I was like, abso-freaking-lutely. This is everything I want. Writing about the White Sox day in and day out. Go to school during the day, watch the White Sox in the late afternoon, early evening, and then write up an article once the game is over, discussing what happened in that game. Also did a little bit of some stat keeping on their site as well. So that was always very, very fun. And it all started because Tim Anderson had the famous stick talk where he hit a walk-off home run against the Tigers, or excuse me, he hit a homer against the Tigers, and the next at-bat, he was hit by a pitch after his elaborate bat flip. They didn't like it, and I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. His bat flip, which is really like a javelin spike, was absolutely electric, that the next time the White Sox and Tigers would meet, he would actually walk it off with a walk-off homer. And I just thought, why are we not having more fun talking about baseball? So the Southside Sox had actually created like a little stick talk shirt of Tim Anderson that I was like, oh my God, I'm buying this shirt right away. And they're like, aha. So you see us, we see you. Let's make this partnership work, and let's get you to writing. So I started writing for them, and then within a month, I was also promoted, if you will. Everything was volunteer based. To also being an editor for them. So I was both an editor and a writer for quite some time until I moved down to San Diego to start my full-time job post-college.
Yeah, so I think is there anything coming through the sound right now? Is that what people are saying on the chat? It might be just pulling in. I think I clicked a button and that might have worked.
Oh yeah, they're asking about your audio, possibly. I
Yeah,
don't see
yeah.
you on
Let's
screen. I only see myself, so it's hard to listen.
yeah, let's hear from everyone. Is the sound working now? Wait, let me
You're
maybe
very quiet on your end.
that's what they're saying. Okay, I did lower it a bit, but if they're able to hear me now, it is that true? They can hear me now?
Yes, just very quiet if you're able to boost your audio a little bit.
Okay. Okay.
But yes, can hear you.
Okay. I'm gonna keep playing around with that, but we can keep talking.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, this is what improvising on the spot is sort of about.
Exactly. Everyone's like, I want to stream, but streaming is hard. There are some challenges.
Yeah. You know what? I wanted to bring this up, but you
Yeah.
had a special surprise for somebody that I told you to bring a specific object. If you could, sort of share what that
Yes,
is.
one of your past guests is a big Rubik's Cube competitor, and I have a couple near me once I heard this story before we hopped on. I don't have these two memorized, the Mega Minx and the 5x5. I do have the algorithms, I can solve them. But the 3x3, I do have memorized. I used to be able to solve it within 30 seconds to a minute, which is nothing compared to the single digit seconds folks are solving these in. But it all started in seventh grade. In my honors math class, if you were able to solve a Rubik's Cube, you got your name posted on the little bulletin board right outside the classroom for everybody to walk by to see. And I was like, oh my God, I want my name to be on that bulletin board. And I've always wanted to solve this Rubik's Cube. So I want to say it was fall break, maybe winter break, one of the breaks. Maybe it was a long weekend. I'm just misremembering. I looked up a YouTube video and I started understanding what the heck is an algorithm and how does it relate to a Rubik's Cube. And I solved it for my teacher later that week. And the rest is history. Then I bought all the way up to the 5x5 in some funky shapes, like the Mega Minx.
Yeah, I also brought a Rubik's Cube with me too, and
Hey, there we go.
this time I can actually solve it, but definitely not under a minute yet. I think the closest I can get as far as solving it is
Yeah.
3 minutes. But
Hey, that's still good.
everybody I tell about just Livia teaching me how to solve this cube. Uh, they call Livia the Rubik's Cube master.
I believe it.
Yeah. So I just wanted to shout out to her kind of getting it started,
Let's
that
go.
passion in me for cubing. I might have to get myself a Mega Minx or 5x5 at some point too, but
I just like it's just beautiful. Like it's just amazing. Highly recommend.
yeah, yeah. So just that was just a little diversion, but we're here for one thing. Well, we're here for two things. We're here to have fun, and we're here to do it for a good reason. The fun
I
part
love
is
that.
we're here to talk about 30 years of women in baseball video games. The for good part, doing this for good, is we're doing a little fundraiser for the communities affected in Southern California by the Southern California wildfires. And we put in the chat, so in the chat, there's a little link to a fundraiser that we're doing to get them help. And to make this possible, I did reach out to some of the families that were affected, and I got to hear their stories, got to see the damage, and it really broke my heart seeing it. And when I did see it, and I'll show the photos uh, in the podcast later, but it's just hard to see, to see so many people having to escape that, and just to see what's left. And we just wanted to kind of do some good through this, even though it may seem a little bit unrelated. I think, Southern California has a large, Dodgers community. Shout out to the Dodgers. So I think in many ways there's a lot of connection between baseball and these really heartbreaking moments, and just connecting people who didn't know they could share a moment of solace and connection through that. Um, but to the fun part, we're here to talk about 30 years of women in baseball video games. Now,
Yes.
how did what was the first baseball video game that you started playing?
Oh my, that's a great question. I downloaded when I first got like my iPod Touch. I couldn't even tell you the title, but I had like some like off-brand baseball mobile game that I would like exclusively play on my iPod. It was like the only game I had, but I absolutely adored it. However, my first really actual baseball game was MLB The Show.
And I think the game that I had, maybe the first experience of a baseball video game, was with Backyard Baseball, which we will talk about.
Yes. Love backyard baseball.
But one of the common things about some of these games is that they really all started with playing in the arcades. I know not
Yes.
a lot of people might be familiar with the arcade experience, but it just all started in the 80s. And these places still exist around. There's some good arcade and pubs in my area, but yeah, you should go check them out. I don't know if there are any near me that have baseball arcade game cabinets, but yeah, they're really fun. And did you ever visit a video game arcade, like a traditional? Here's the cabinet. Looks straight out of like a time capsule '80s movie.
Right, yeah, nothing like traditional. I mean, I've been to, like Dave and Buster's however many times growing up when I was super young, like the Chuck E. Cheeses of the world. But nothing like actual like coin 80s retro style, just machine type arcade. Hopefully at some point I'll have the opportunity to do so. But at least in like the Dave and Buster's, I remember there was this one arcade game, nothing people centric to it in terms of the baseball, but it was almost pinball like, where you had some sort of like bat at the very bottom. You'd press a button as like baseballs were rolling toward you, and you're trying to swing at the baseball to land in different point buckets. The more points you get, the more tickets you earn, kind of a deal. So that was pretty cool to be exposed to and be like, hey, I'm playing baseball like pinball. That kind of inception was cool. Yeah,
Yeah, so let's go ahead and kick it off.
let's do it.
Yeah, we have I think something like 12 or 15 games to cover.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, where could we possibly start then from the beginning, which is introducing SNK Baseball Stars. It came out in 1989, and I have to say that this was possibly the first baseball video game, baseball arcade game to allow playable female characters. And you can sort of see it in the picture here. This team is called the Lovely Ladies. And yeah, they're a team that you don't necessarily immediately access from the main menu. Ashley, what did you discover about this game?
Yeah, didn't you have to like type in like a secret answer to a question to even like unlock the lovely ladies as playable characters?
Oh yeah, yeah. You have to answer a question like, "What is a wren?"
Yes.
And compared to modern day baseball video games, the most recent MLB The Show, I mean, how does this compare as far as like simplicity? How many
Oh,
modes of play
absolutely.
are we looking at?
Not very many. I think there's like just one league mode where you have like six-ish teams or so. You play any number amount of games. I think up to 25 is your given season. And that's just kind of the nature of video games because like the video game industry is relatively new, which is crazy to think about just given where we are with video games as a whole. So the fact that we get our first baseball game in the late 80s is kind of just on par with how the video game industry has started and expanded since then. But you can definitely see on the graphic that was relayed above. The graphics definitely more pixelated, a little less real lifey, very, 80s arcade like graphics. But I mean, they got the job done. You understood what was going on here, who was a male player, who was a female player, and you were still able to play a game of baseball.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and show the graphic again, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, there it is. That's just one still. I can probably pull up some more like gameplay throughout this show, but I thought we'd sort of circle back a little bit because we're trying to keep it pretty, chill and laid back here.
For
So we'll
sure.
sort of mix things up. We'll give like little tidbits in history about the games, and then we'll kind of like take it back and just talk about our own experiences with baseball. So, Ashley, how did you get started playing baseball as a kid? So I know you talked about where the love of baseball started, but what about
Yeah.
on the diamond?
Absolutely. It started on the driveway, in the backyard, on the streets, growing up, heading to my cousin's houses. We always had a wiffle ball bat, and then eventually, as my male cousins got a little bit older and joined t-ball and all those different like iterations of the sport, just heading to their games, watching their games, wanting to warm up with them, play catch with them, and then being like, I don't just want to play catch with them to help them warm up. I want to play catch to help me warm up and be on the diamond. But I wouldn't do any baseball, officially organized baseball, until middle school, where I was like, you know what? Enough is enough. I really want to play baseball. I know I'm late to the party as a 13-year-old just with how crazy travel ball teams are and how early they get you, regardless of which sport you play. But I knew I wanted to play baseball. I did not want to play softball. As much as I loved and appreciated and respected softball, baseball was my favorite sport. That was what I wanted to play. So the summer going into eighth grade, I was 13 years old, and I decided to try out for my local boys travel baseball team. It was 3 day tryouts. First 2 days everybody goes to. The third day was you only go to if you were called back. Unfortunately, I was not called back for that third day. Had a plethora of experiences those first 2 days. Oftentimes, I would go last in all of the drills. Nobody wanted me to go first. Obviously, we had to warm up. We had to find throwing partners. And I remember vividly on the first day of practice, one of the coaches being like, "Hey, kid," I don't recall his name, but "Hey, kid, go warm up with her," kind of a thing. Like I was just a second thought. Like he was just doing it out of pity, which I am not somebody who appreciates to be pitied, excuse me. So that was not the best experience playing, and I knew it could be better. It was just I didn't know at the time what could I be doing to make it better, so the next person who's in this position doesn't have to face what I did.
Yeah, and my experience with baseball, I'll put myself on the screen for a
Yeah,
second, just floating back and forth. My
doing
experience with
great.
baseball started in Little League. I think that's
Yeah.
everybody's experience, T-ball.
Yes.
Um, and I believe my dad was the coach along with a couple other neighborhood kids. Um, but yeah, that's wonderful. You to kind of repeat what you said, you got started in Little League.
Not traditionally. So I would help like my cousins warm up for their little league games.
Okay. And I always remember whenever kids were just getting around and playing baseball and learning to love the game, you know, it they would, have their folders of baseball cards, they'd share stories of favorite players, they just have all the baseball caps and stories of all the games that they went to. Did you, to throw a curveball, did you
Yeah.
collect any cards yourself?
Yeah, I did not correct collect baseball cards growing up. I was a huge Pokemon player. I loved Pokemon. That
Mm.
was my thing. I got it from my brother, so shout out my brother Matt, who got me into it. But so we were big Pokemon card collectors, and not until like right before, if not at the early start of the pandemic, did I really discover baseball cards, and that's because I know we'll get to it a little bit later in the hour. So to foreshadow, if you will, that was the 2020. What I got the game MLB The Show 20, and that was the very first time I played their Diamond Dynasty mode, which is a card collecting mode, and some of the cards are based off of real in life Topps baseball cards, and that's what
Mm.
inspired me. I bought a couple singles off of like eBay or whatnot of like some of my favorite MLB The Show cards, and then it just expanded from there of, oh wait, there's all these different sets and products and price points. Some of my best friends now are huge baseball card collectors, so we're always talking about the latest product, if we're going to buy it or not, what we think of it. So growing up, I was not a huge baseball card collector, but certainly now I am. But I definitely understand that my collection is just a little bit compared to some others, but I love how it is anyway.
Yeah, that's really awesome because I also have it's a very, very little card collection. I don't
Yeah.
remember having an entire folder's worth of cards, but recently, I think within the past 2 years, I purchased an Olivia Pichardo baseball card.
Let's go.
Yeah, yeah, and there's an entire. I think there might be somebody in the chat who also is a big card collector. I'm not looking
Yes.
at the chat at the moment,
That is
but
Birds on Bat. His name is Mason.
yeah, yeah. There's also a couple other collectors too, so that there might be a whole crowd in there just for
Yeah.
baseball cards. But yeah, I personally requested that it be sealed. I forget what the name of the specific holder is that holds the card and keeps them in mint condition. But I was like, this card's gonna
Oh, like
blow
the
up
top loaders?
in a
Yeah.
couple years. I tell you.
Hey, there we go. I love to hear that.
Yeah, I'm sure with every baseball card uh, aficionado or so-called baseball card aficionado that they sort of see that little gold mine sitting in a packet of cards or in their folder.
Oh,
But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, baseball kind of starts in so many different ways. I mean, for some people, it starts with with video games, with some
Hmm.
baseball cards, with getting on the field, and kind of to circle back to Baseball Stars.
Yeah.
That was the first baseball video game that included women, but for so many early baseball video games, it repeatedly becomes one of the top baseball video games that they say you have to play this game specifically. If you were to make a list of like classic baseball video games to play,
Right.
Baseball Stars is on that list. And to add to the excuse me, to add to the modes that were on there, you could have a league mode, but you
Yeah.
could also have a versus mode. So the league mode, you could have 1 to 6 teams, and you could play anything from like 1 to 25 games.
Right.
And for the versus mode was the other mode. You could play against the computer. You could play player versus player. Again, this is happening on an arcade cabinet. So you're pulling out your
Yeah.
pocket full of quarters, and if
You
you
know
run
it.
out, you're running back to the coin machine and getting more. Um, and you could even play the versus mode in the middle of a league.
Hmm.
And to sort of sum it up, like just like I'll just read off kind of how this game is described by some of the game reviewers of the day. So player, manager, owner, you can do it all, Baseball Stars. Make your own teams and leagues, hire, fire, and trade players. Develop your players from inexperienced rookies into veteran pitchers and hitters. Play against a friend or challenge the computer. You'll never have to worry about being rained out again.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
The rained
crazy.
out.
It's crazy to hear that you, as simple as this game was, that you had all these
Mhm.
features that you thought would have come later in future
Yeah.
games. So like for instance, being able to fire and trade your players in your team if they're underperforming. I thought that that was something that only appeared in like baseball games in the knots in like the 2000s and
Yeah.
later. But if anybody already knew that in the chat, or if anybody knows a little bit more history about when exactly that started, feel free to share that. Um,
Yeah, it's almost like, to your point, now we're seeing a transition from in person going to the arcade to now, video games or consoles are entering individuals' households. You don't have to go out to enjoy it. So, what I'm almost predicting, if you will, is the need to differentiate what was available in the arcade and make it something more so people stay home, purchase, say, the NES to play this game. What is different to keep the people playing it on the Nintendo system, playing it in front of their TVs at home versus going to go and play the competitors in the arcade down the street, kind of a thing.
mm, yeah, and the other unique thing I've heard about. So the name of the cabinet that SNK designed was called the Neo
Yeah.
Geo, and
Hmm.
the advantage it had against its competitors was that instead of having to change out an entire cabinet, an entire like locker sized cabinet for every game or sequel that you put into your arcade shop or parlor, you could just swap out individual electronic cards. You could even swap out updates. And sometimes these cards, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes these cards were even made in like an early kind of open source community. So some people would almost like solder their own updates to this game with chips on a board, and they'd add extra
Yeah.
features. And that was a feature of that community during that time of just
Hmm.
updating these games and adding extra features. So, the next game that we want to talk about is Baseball Stars Professional. And I
Yeah.
will say I just kind of looked at this and immediately I couldn't believe that this was the poster for the game because I'll put it back because it just looks so cartoony. It looks
Right.
like that's my hot take on this game is that on the packaging it's sort of drawn like, well, believably for this era, that it's drawn on an early version of MS Paint by not
Yeah.
to, yeah,
Oh no, finish it out. Yeah.
yeah, not to make fun of the person who might have put a lot of thought into this design and been like, this is the one that's going to get me the bonus of my career, get the pool in the yard with my family. But I don't know, it kind of looks a little thrown together. uh,
Yeah, I mean, even then, like, if we compare Baseball Stars to Baseball Stars Professional of '90, like, we're just talking a 1 year gap difference, '89 to '90, to see how, like, almost like 180 the graphics have taken. Like, oh, I can actually see faces, see proper hairstyles, see the text across their clothes, cover included. That alone is such like a monumental leap. Of course, knowing where we are now in the graphics world, it's definitely a little gotta blink twice, take a second look at it. But just given like the 1 year difference of those two titles and how much more detail we got on the graphics side, it's still pretty cool to see, especially in such a short turnaround time.
Yeah, it's incredible how this game sort of really transformed itself from just Baseball Stars to Baseball Stars
Yeah.
Professional.
Hmm.
Um, the one thing I've heard from players that have played this version of the game is it's not exactly their favorite because it's just way too hard.
Mm.
Um, and I'm trying to remember what exactly. Well, the good is that, like all arcade games, it's a very fast paced game because they're trying to take your
Yes.
quarters as quickly as possible. They're trying to eliminate you in in 4 innings and get the
Right.
next player on. But it has the other added nicety that if your team is shut out by more than 10 points, or if
Yeah.
your team is ahead by more than 10 points, the game just ends. You're not stuck in 12 innings of torture.
Right, yeah, you really have your first introduction to the mercy rule, if you will, of hey, if you're up
The
or
mercy
down by
rule.
10 runs, the game is done. Save yourself anything more, jump into the next game. So to compare that to like an arcade of like, hey, how do we maybe take a quarter a little quicker to get them into a next game instead of them, letting the computer go up 15 to nothing, really soak out those 9 innings of play, however it might be. It's like, hey, you're either going to be good at this game with your quarter, get that value out of it, or the game's going to end and you got to slide in another quarter to play again.
Right. And can you think of any other baseball video game, just in general, just of all that you've played, that is as punishing as that sounds?
I mean, MLB The Show, if you are playing online competitive person versus person, there is a mercy rule in the 9 inning game mode called ranked, where if you are up by 10, and you've played the full inning, or if you're up by 10 and it's at least the fourth inning, excuse me, then the game is over. You at least get 4 innings guaranteed. If you're able to get a run back in the fourth inning and say it's a 10-1 ball game, you live on to see the fifth, and then you go from there until you hopefully make it to the ninth inning. So it's one of those things of too, like, hey, maybe you're a little overmatched because it is human versus human. Let's take you out of that so it doesn't ruin
Hmm.
your experience and try to match you up with somebody more your play style. But again, this is not head to head real person versus real person. This is real person against the computer, which I have not seen such extreme consequences for in a computer format.
Oh yeah, and has there been one of those games where you were just baseball games that you've been so frustrated with that you just like, "Nyeh," throw the controller at the wall?
I Controllers are very expensive, so you will not be
You
seeing
respect
me
your
throw a
equipment.
controller on the wall. My take is just, hey, you're better than me. Okay, now I'm gonna go play the next game and then hopefully get better to beat the next person I might encounter. That's just a me thing. I know there's definitely people who rage quit, if you will, or rage at the game. I'm just like, hey, at the end of the day, it's a video game. I know we all want to win and do well, but is it worth having to buy a new controller, especially in modern day when they're, 60, if not more dollars? But I have heard many of the rage stories and have seen many posts across Reddit, Twitter, what have you, of controllers in the wall, and admittedly, they do make me crack up.
Oh yeah, I'm not at gamer rage levels yet. I'm a
Hmm.
very quiet gamer, but
Yeah.
I think it's maybe StarCraft or some of those kind of games where you're managing a lot of different tasks all at once. Resource
Hmm.
management games, I have thrown out a couple expletives here and there. Yeah,
I I will do the same, and I will verbalize some things, but yeah,
yeah. I don't know if
it's gotta
there's
get it out, you know?
I don't know if there's a moment in Pokemon that's like that for you, where you're just like, oh my gosh, this.
Right?
Why am I freaking losing?
No, for real. I remember this might be a little too niche, but I remember like we would sit like outside of our classrooms in elementary school like until the teacher came until we walked all in. And I was talking to my friend at the time, and he was in, I forgot which gym battle he was in, but he was in a gym battle, and he was like, "Oh my goodness, this took me like my whole 2.5 hour play session, hour and a half play session the previous night, and I still haven't beat the boss, the gym boss, to get the gym badge." And I was like sitting next to him, and I was like, oh snap, I'm like, I did this and this and I beat it on the first try, and he just kind of gave me a look, and then we laughed about it, but he was like, how? I wish I could recall which gym boss it was, but I remember that, and that was my first like experience of like somebody other than my siblings experiencing rage at a video game, if you will. So it's pretty cool just to see like the emotions something can impact you with.
Yeah, it's. I think of specifically Pokemon. I just remember there was always
Yeah.
that specific gym leader, and I know this is sort of like trailing off, but
No, you're good.
yeah, we have a lot of time to sort of just chill. Um, the gym leaders, I remember that really frustrated me. Gold, Silver, Whitney was a menace.
Oh,
Roll
that's a
out, roll
great
out, roll
callback.
out. Yeah.
Uh,
Oh my gosh, it was so punishing.
mhm.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to also share about Baseball Stars Professional is that it was, I believe, and I say this about every game because I discover new titles I didn't know about before, specifically
Of
in
course.
women in baseball video games. I discover that this might have been possibly the first baseball video game where you could play a female manager. So you could have a
Yes.
female manager on your uh, managing your team. So that's incredible to see it happen just right off the bat, just
Mhm.
off of the second sequel to Baseball Stars.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I'm trying to think what else really kind of stood out to me with this game. Well, I'll tell you a little bit of history about just if if you if you make the comparison. So like this is 1990 when they released Baseball Stars Professional. You can play as a general female manager, female general
Mhm.
manager. Um, but as far as we know, 2022 was the year we saw the first MLB affiliated team female manager, which was Rachel
Yes.
Balkovich, and
Hmm.
she managed the Tampa Tarpons. But as I
Correct.
say with all of these kind of researches into women's history, I almost wonder if it's just a matter of how we define what is an official league, to tell us when exactly was the first female baseball manager. Because you think like
Right. Yeah.
before the MLB, there must have been like predecessor leagues before the MLB became the dominant one. So you think like
Hmm.
early barnstorming baseball leagues. You think the AAGPBL,
Hmm.
and I have to wonder how many female baseball managers there were during those eras that we just haven't heard about. So take it with a grain of salt as far as like whenever these first are declared, because it turns out there might actually be a deeper history that if we just if we just look into other organizations instead of the ones we're familiar with nowadays, we'll
Right.
find other hidden histories of women lying in there just waiting to be discovered.
Absolutely, yeah. That's a fair point. Like Rachel might have been the first for a Major League Baseball affiliated baseball team, but as we know, there's been so many countless baseball organizations like different barnstorming teams, the Negro Leagues, the All American Girls Professional Baseball League. Um, Obviously, we have a little future women's professional baseball league coming up in 2026 that we don't know who's going to be managing the team. So some futures first, if you will. So there's a lot of history to be kind of uncovered there.
Yeah, and I'll just go ahead and finish this one up by reading again, like just
Yeah.
the little um, this story that they have for this game. An all-star lineup. Big league players hit, run, throw, and make dynamic plays. Enjoy real-life baseball excitement in versus mode and tournament mode. And now off to our next game. The next game we're going to talk about is Bad News Baseball. This is, I will say, Bad News Baseball has little to do with the actual Bad News Bears franchise. It seems like it was maybe just an opportunity for the company to capitalize on relevant uh, movie movie franchises that were around at the time. But it's no less fun. The little rabbit that you see there is actually a reference to Tecmo's mascot Jackie the Jackrabbit, and during the game you'll actually see Jackie the Jackrabbit appear as Pink Rabbit referees throughout the ball field.
I love that. I love the little Easter eggs.
Yeah, and Easter eggs are another story in and on its own. Just in general, like how far back like the earliest Easter egg was.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and what was unique about this game is that it even had an ending title sequence that you could have showing an entire all-female team. I might show that later once I get everything set up. But this Bad News Baseball, I don't think it was the first baseball video game. If we're looking at our little lineup,
Yeah.
it wasn't the first baseball video game to have a spectator mode. You could also watch the computer play against itself in uh, Baseball Stars Professional, and I believe
Mhm.
also Baseball Stars. But I think Bad News Baseball might have gone straight to home systems, and yet it still plays fast paced like arcade games of that earlier era.
Yeah.
Um, and that's one of the things that players repeat is enjoyable about this game is that it's still fast paced and it has flexible defense, so you can substitute teams with players to sort of make up for any shortcomings the first few innings had for you. The negative, the downside to Bad News Baseball is that the defensive play is a little slow. So your slowers out in the outfield run a little bit slow. But Bad News Baseball has three modes. So it has spectator mode, it has a 1 and 2 player mode, but uniquely it has an all-star game feature. Ashley, go ahead and kind of talk about what the all-star game feature is about.
Yeah, to my knowledge, you have like 20-ish different all-star players, and you play a three-game series against the computer with those players. So in essence, it's basically the best of the best against the computer in the league. And that can be done single player, but then you can also couch play it with two-player all-stars, where you choose again the 20 best all-star players amongst like the Ultra and Super League divisions that they have organized. And again, you're still in a three-game series. So if you have somebody with you to play this with, you can with the All Stars, but if you're playing individually by yourself, you can still pick it up against the computer using the best characters of the game against the best characters of the game in a true All Star matchup.
Yeah, and the other sort of criticisms that they have about this baseball game, of course, not every baseball game is perfect. It's an iterative thing over generations and generations of games. This game can also not be forgiving because if you pick your players in odd positions where they don't belong, if you put somebody on second base that is not good on second base, the computer will
Mm-hmm.
see that and they will take advantage of it.
Yes, your first like introduction, if you will, to playing players out of position, and that there are penalties because every position requires a unique subset of skills. Sure, if you play shortstop, you should be able to play second. If you play an outfield position, you should be able to play the other outfield positions. But you're dealing with a different perspective on baseball for every single position, therefore requiring a different skill set. So to see the real life penalties of the game when you play out of position translate into the baseball virtual game. It's kind of cool to you're starting to see a little bit more real life integrations of what are the consequences if you play out of position in real life. Hey, if you're going to play this virtually, you're also going to experience some of those consequences as well.
Yeah, and a couple other unforgiving aspects about this game is that you can't choose the fielder that you want to throw to. You kind of throw it blind, and whoever catches it is just whoever happens to be in the area of this ball where you can't even see where it's going to land. So,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, that's something that can sort of be a little bit unforgiving about this game. And the last sort of thing I noticed about
Mm-hmm.
playing this game is that there's no season mode. You only get a 3 game series.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
yeah, that's way different than what Baseball Stars Professional offered. And I don't know why that is if they just decided when designing this game just to, get it out as quickly as possible, or do you have any theories about that,
Yeah.
Ashley?
It probably goes into like the original design intent of the game. Like I know like when we were discussing like one of the positives of it is because it's so fast-paced natured. In its predecessors before that had 25-ish game seasons, give or take. 25 games is a lot of time to dedicate to a game. Where if you're in, 10 through or game 10 through game 15, you're not doing so well. What's motivating you to finish the season? Whereas what we have here with Bad News Baseball is because it's such short three-game series entities, you are always in it. You always have a chance to be the better team. And if you're not, you only dedicated, if you lost the first two of three games, you're losing the series. Maybe you got swept, but you're only dedicating a smaller portion of time versus a full-on series to kind of get you, all right, you lost this series, let me go play this series. Oh, I won this series, I want to go see if I can go back to back wins with this series. So as you're playing the series, even though you might end up in a single play session playing close to 15, 20 games, it doesn't feel like that because it's not uh, originally thrown out to you in that kind of a format. You just see, oh, I can sit down to play three games, and then it's six games, and then it's nine games. Whereas if you sit down with one of the previous titles and you're playing a 25 game season, it's like, All right, I made it to game 8 out of 25. It's time to take a break. It's just getting started. So just kind of messing with the different player mindsets and, how can we keep the player entertained and engaged? Let's make it fast paced.
Yeah, and speaking of breaks, we can probably do two more games and do a little intermission. Or Ashley,
Heck yeah.
I'll let the dealer be the choice. Do you want to do an intermission now, or do you want to get two more games out and then?
Yeah, it looks like we have a few more titles if you want to get to make it like a halfway point. But hey, you're the host.
Oh,
All
that is
good.
fair. Okay, yeah. Let's take a 15-minute break, and then we'll come out
Sounds
and
good.
crank out a couple more games. So let me go ahead and we'll be back at the 25. 25. All right,
Perfect.
everybody, go get your snacks. Go check Instagram. Go to the bathroom. Do whatever you need, and be back here at the 25.
Heck yeah. Yeah, take your time. Yeah, sounds good. I don't think my mic is muted on the other end, but I will be right back. Heard myself in the background. I think you are still muted on their end, unfortunately.
Right. No, no, no. I just pressed a button. It should be. You should be able to hear me now.
Yes, you are all good now.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah. I just hope I'm loud enough. Am I loud enough? Do I need to be louder? Do I need to get quieter? Do I need to get louder? Do I need do I need to go from like a mouse to
You are
Ashley
perfect volume.
Sanders
Yeah.
levels of energy?
Got a lot of it. I can share some. No, it sounds perfect.
Yeah, is that something that people tell you every time they tune into your content that you just
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I take it as a huge compliment. That's why I love streaming so much. I have all this energy. It's like such a great way to get it out, you know?
yeah, yeah. Um I just wanted to share one video of
Yeah.
baseball stars, kind of how the play goes by. So, let me just set this up and so everybody can kind of see from my direction. There should be like a little. Wait, where are you? Where are you? Right there. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna show you kind of. This is Baseball Stars, and here's kind of how the gameplay looks a little bit while playing it. Yeah, like you can kind of see it has that classic retro music.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Giving me big Pokemon Yellow vibes.
What was that?
Like Pokemon Yellow, like Pokemon Blue, Red, and Yellow, how they all had like that arcade-like sound.
Yeah, yeah. Like there's an entire like skill set to creating classic soundtracks like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, what sort of music do you see in MLB The Show? Like
Yeah, there's an array of music. As a player, I am notorious for turning the music down just because I usually play competitively, so just like lock in and focus. There's a lot of mix of artists from different like reggae and pop and rap and rock. A whole lot of different genres, if you will. That's just pretty cool. You get a nice healthy mix, I would say.
if you had to have one walk on song, what would it be? Like you're going up to bat, what's your song that's playing?
Ooh, there is a song, and it's totally escaping me, which is so embarrassing because it's my walk-off song. Oh my goodness, by Macklemore. Um, Glorious. Why did that take me forever? Glorious, from Macklemore featuring Skylar Grey, is my go-to walk-up song because it's just, like the chorus is amazing. Like you're glorious. I'm not gonna sing it, but it's like it's a hype song to pump you up. So if I wanted something to make me feel good and confident going up to plate. Definitely Glorious by Macklemore featuring Skylar Grey.
Oh yeah, like let me just go ahead and show that play by play again in this game because I don't think
Yeah.
everybody got the chance to see the at bat. Yeah, look at the lovely ladies around the bases.
Yep.
And if you look into the crowd, you kind of see that the crowd are almost just dots on the screen. They're not
Right,
like
right? Yeah.
yeah,
You just get their heads that are just dots essentially.
yeah. Whereas nowadays you get a whole like almost an individual design for every single guest in the field.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah. So what was the last game that we left off with?
We left off with Bad News Baseball. So we have a little Super Baseball 2020 futuristic game to kick us off next.
Oh yeah. So let me go ahead and pull that up for a second.
I say futuristic, but holy cow, it's already 2025, and this title came out in 1991, talking about the year 2020. So crazy
Yeah.
to think about. And we did have a pretty catastrophic event in 2020.
You know what? I think that's perfect time to go ahead and introduce it. This is SNK Super Baseball 2020. And just like you said, I heard a couple reviewers kind of compare the events of, well, the way that this game was designed to almost
Mhm.
like an apocalypse. Like everybody was kind of contained in, the audience was kind of surrounded by a bubble chamber,
Mhm.
and the players were all like robots or androids, or if you can call them drones. So I heard a couple like crazy fans theories saying that this game was like anticipating or predicting what would happen in 2020. And
Mhm.
yeah, I'll see if I could bring up that gameplay later.
Yeah.
But yeah, what are some unique things about Super Baseball 2020 besides the prophetic aspect of it?
Yeah, I mean, if anything, that's what makes it unique. Of all the games we have discussed so far, it's their attempt to best allow the users to play as close to real life baseball as possible, depending on what rules they have. Obviously, like the mercy rule is something we don't have in real life baseball, but there is that exists in like little league baseball, if not throughout your kind of career before you get into the pros per se. But you see all of these attempts of, hey, we're trying to put real life baseball into a video game. And now with 2020 here, we're starting to see a little bit of some fantasy elements and a little bit of storyline around the baseball league as it stands. So instead of like, hey, I'm just picking up this game, gonna go play 3 game series, a 25 game season, we're depending on which game I'm picking up. Instead, I have a little bit of story, a little bit of background, a little bit more at stake. That's not just the play on the diamond.
Right, and let me read a little bit off of like how they describe this
Yeah.
game. So, conventional baseball no longer exists in the year 2020. How about that? I mean, not too far off. The Super Baseball
Right?
Association has been very profitable over the years, with robotic power players up against the strongest of athletes. Due to the secret manipulation of certain robotics team players, abilities have been computer controlled to decide the outcome of certain games, benefiting the SBA. Die-hard players discovered the SBA's cheating and have now disconnected several parts of the computers to achieve fair and challenging play. Now the games may continue in the famed Cyber Egg Stadium, where only power and skill will determine the winner. And one thing I want to announce or remind everybody before we move on is that we're doing this show to talk about the history of women in baseball video games, but we're also doing it for some good. We're doing it for fundraising for the Southern California wildfires. And if you'd like to pitch in, if you feel like you can contribute a little bit, we have a link in the chat where you can go ahead and uh, provide some assistance to some really, really needing communities and families in the area. And again, I spoke with some of these families, and I'll try to share it a little later once I grab that all together.
Yeah.
But it's heartbreaking to see.
Mhm.
So going back to the baseball game, what other unique things about this game are there? Well, aside from the futuristic aspect of it, the kind of things that people kind of pick out about this game that Leave a little bit left to be desired are that the zone where a home run counts kind of shrinks. So even if it looks like you hit it out of the park, they kind of ding you a little bit and just take you back and humble you. But one of the more apocalyptic aspects of this game that's a little crazy is that your players can die. I mean, that's it's not really
There's
like
some big stipulations here. Yeah.
yeah, that you could die mid game. Yeah. What else did you notice about this game, Ashley?
Yeah, other like because there are some pretty extreme consequences for your players, you kind of have to be good at this game, meaning like you have to practice in order to hopefully adjust for those smaller home run zones, keep your team alive, hopefully, to see out the full game. That is the difficulty of it is definitely very apparent there, especially just given the story that we're playing the baseball in.
Yeah. And I just think what's cool about this game is that it might be the only game in our lineup that's set in the future. I mean, how
Yeah.
did SNK kind of turn this around from making almost very traditional baseball games to something that was like apocalyptic, dystopian, and
Hmm.
futuristic? I I don't know what was going on in 1991 that made them take this sort of
Right.
turn on the concepts of their games. But one more thing I've heard about this game is that it can take a lot of practice. It's easy to start, hard to master.
Right,
And
exactly.
yeah, yeah. I mean, is that something that would kind of deter you a little bit from playing this specific game? Just like a game that has a little bit too much time to knock out to even gain the littlest achievements.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's a pretty hardcore target audience. I'm predicting that this game was originally designed for instead of us teaching you baseball, getting you into it, having newcomer baseline information and helping educate you, get you good at this game. It's kind of like, hey, no. If you want to find success in Super Baseball 2020, you do have to come in with a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of experience with other baseball games, so that you can kind of meet the baseline that they're setting there, which kind of meets that hardcore audience that would be there at the time of release.
Yeah, and I will say that this is not the only baseball video game that we will see kind of try to peek into the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are other baseball games in our lineup that try to look into 100 plus years from now what baseball will look like. And I
Yes.
think you're gonna see some hints at superpowers. But yeah, exactly. I mean, what would your baseball superpower be if you had any? Would it be like
Ooh, that's
extra
a good
long hits
question.
or extra fast running speed?
I would definitely say wheels. At so intense running speed. So maybe that actually literally means wheels for feet, if you will, to get all around the baseball diamond in the outfield as quickly as possible. But most importantly, to snag as many stolen bases as possible. I take pride in my stolen bases.
Yeah, me, I think I would also pick speed too.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because like you could pull it out just at the right moments, especially if you're trying to steal a base. I mean,
Hmm.
what better advantage can you have than that?
No, for real.
Yeah, you can pull that out clutch.
Yes.
Now to our next game. This will probably be the game most people are familiar with when talking about a
Yes.
baseball video game. And we're talking about a classic
Oh
backyard
yeah.
baseball. Have you ever played this game, Ashley?
I have. I am a huge fan of backyard baseball.
Yeah, and what's unique about this game is that each of these design players they have their own unique personalities. In fact,
Yes.
I wanted you guys to kind of hear from some of them. Yeah, yeah. Let me show you. So,
I love her to pieces. Daddy says she's the yin to my yang. Whatever. Our dad tells us to be careful when we play baseball because he doesn't want us to mess up our serve. He says he has too much invested in our tennis. So we have to be very careful every time we go out and play. If you see him coming, holler so we can pretend like we're just watching. We went to the doctor the other day and he says Ashley and I have 20/20 vision. I guess that means we can see really good. I don't know what the numbers mean though. Maybe it has something to do with that television show, 20/20. Ashley's backhand is really good, but I've got the best forehand. We have tennis lessons all year round. During the school year, we get up extra early so we can practice before school. And when school is out, we go and practice some more. Sometimes, though, we get to do fun stuff instead, like ride bikes or play tag. I always thought Ashley got all the brains and I got all the looks. But don't tell her I said that. She's also not as good at baseball as I am. But she's a great sister, and I love her to pieces. Daddy says she's the yin to my yang. Whatever. Sydney's backhand is really good, but I've got the best forehand. We have an older sister who plays tennis too, and she's really good. She'll probably get a scholarship or something, maybe even turn pro. I don't want to play tennis forever though. I want to be an artist when I grow up. Don't tell Daddy though. I always thought...
Let me show a couple other personalities in this.
Yeah, these are amazing. We talked about baseball card collecting earlier. All these players have their own baseball card-like stats and summaries that you would find that make them so unique and like personalized.
He's my friend. I love Teddy. And Teddy loves me. And Teddy loves ice cream and cake and tea with little biscuits with icing shaped like little happy faces. So yummy. My older brother is a starting pitcher for his middle school team, and maybe he'll come by later and show you guys how to pitch because he's really good. I wish he'd show me how to pitch a little better because I'm not that good at it. I'd rather play in the field. My name's Jocinda Smith, and I'm in the 3rd grade. My favorite class is art.
They're so great. I love these. All the nostalgia right here.
Some kids just have natural talent, and some kids just don't. I don't want to toot my own horn or anything, but I'm a natural, for sure.
Atlantic accent?
Maybe.
My brother's name is Tony, and he thinks he's a big man, but he ain't all that, He's older than me, but he's not nearly as mature as I am. I am a young lady, I'm in the 3rd grade, but I tested into the 5th grade, but my pop, he wouldn't let me move on.
Yeah, definitely traces of Jersey in there.
My brother Tony feel like a knucklehead.
Jersey.
He says, Angela Sugar, you're a good kid. What you need to go make in your brother Tony accent? Got a candy bar?
Got a candy
I
bar.
like baseball more than vegetables, but hey, who doesn't?
That's gotta be
Carrots
my
are okay though.
catchphrase.
And I kinda like Brussels sprouts, but onions give me the wind, something fierce. One time for Christmas, my grandma gave me this little pony doll with a creepy crawling. I'm scared something's going to bust out of its cage. Get me. No, not really. I'm just kidding.
And I think
Maybe I can be
this
an
one has
actress
to be
someday.
Inspired
Or
by Billie
a
Jean
manicurist. My mama says my looks are gonna be my ticket out of this neighborhood. Como te levu. My name's Billie Jean. My daddy says I'm too young to wear makeup, but I can wear lip gloss. I have 20 different types. Right now, I'm wearing Secret Sassy Strawberry Ultra Gloss for young ladies. Bonjour. My name's Billie Jean.
I mean, do any of those... What player do you think speaks to you most of all?
Yeah, my favorite player is Stephanie Morgan. She is a shortstop, and she's kind of a five-tool athlete, if I recall. She's got the contact, she's got the power, she has the fielding and the speed. I love that she wears a little backwards hat. I always think people were like baller who would wear their hats backwards. But she was one of my go-to players that I would put closer to the top of my lineup. And of course, you can't talk backyard baseball without mentioning the GOAT Pablo Sanchez, who somehow always hits a homer or at least an extra base hit every single at-bat. So shout out to the GOAT Pablo, but shout out to the underrated GOAT and Stephanie Morgan. But also Lisa Crockett, she is not the best fielder, not the best hitter. A lot of people don't give her the credit she deserves, but she is excellent on the mound. I remember when I was like first playing this game and trying to like very quickly understand all these players, who should I put in my team? A lot of people were like, Lisa Crockett, not an ace. Don't even worry about her. And I was like, okay, let's see this for real. I'm like, what are we talking about? She is a like undiscovered gem. She's my go-to starter. So those are just a few of my favorites. But have you played? Do you have any favorites?
I would have to say all of my brothers, I believe, thinking back, we also put Pablo Sanchez on our team all the time. I mean, who doesn't?
Hey. Exactly. Like you're doing, it's a disgrace if you don't have him on your squad.
Yeah, but I think the most memorable character from me from Backyard Baseball has to be Sunny Day. The
Oh, that's a good
announcer.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And she appears in every single backyard sports title. So
does.
rewind a little back. Let's just talk about where this game kind of came from. Do you kind of is this a story that you're familiar with a little bit?
I am not familiar with the origin of this game. No.
Yeah, so it actually started in Seattle. So it was I'm blanking on the name here, but it was
Yeah.
two best friends who just observed that there were all these kids that loved to play baseball, all these little kids, but they didn't really have a baseball game to play.
Yeah.
And they decided to put one together themselves. These were the founders of Humongous Entertainment, the
Mm,
creators and publishers of the game. And they decided to really theme it on the Sandlot personality and
yes.
story and theme. So they have you picking the players for your team playground style by taking turns. I mean, that's a far turn from how it's done, in in the professional leagues, where you don't always get to pick your favorite players. Like,
Right.
yeah, and you have to round out your team a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more. But yeah, like I said, Sunny Day was probably the most memorable character from that game, along with Pablo Sanchez. But she has been in every single backyard sports title. Her voice actress in the first backyard baseball title was Jen Taylor, and
And
Jen
Taylor.
Taylor also came back to voice her in 2007. And then they switched out Jen Taylor for Lanny Manella in 2002. And then I think they're bringing back backyard sports. They're in backyard
They
baseball.
are. Yeah,
Yeah,
backyard baseball has already been brought back, and I want to say soccer has already been released, if not close. And then the additional sports are to follow within the coming month, year.
yeah. And the last the last person lately to voice her has been Samantha Kelly. I think these are all voice actresses that have made their rounds throughout multiple animated franchises.
Yeah.
Um, the one gripe I hear from everybody that plays backyard baseball, even from memory, is just that never ending trash talk. Hey, batter,
I love
we want
the
a
trash
batter,
talk.
not a broken ladder.
Yes. Oh my
Yeah,
God. I love it though, because it adds a little bit of humor, a little bit of fun, a little bit of personality. I can see why it can get into your head. Especially because, there's only so many phrases, so if you hear the same one over and over, definitely understandable. But it's exactly what you would say to your friend, your buddy, your sibling if you were playing even on the same team as them, but definitely against them in like a quick pickup game in the backyard.
yeah, and tell us about a little bit of the gameplay of backyard baseball. Like, what sort of features are we looking at?
Yeah, you have like a whole variety of you can play a full season and you can customize your own team, your own location, your own name. You can pick out of all of the backyard characters who you want on your squad. You can change them out at any time. You can of course just go into a very quick mode play where you can just pick a squad that's already created and play with them against whatever the computer's going to throw at you as well. Additionally, like within those modes, there's just a whole bunch of like fun language around how like baseball terminology, if you will. I mentioned Lisa Crockett earlier, who's one of my go-to pitchers. I love her so much. And where you have like your fastball, your changeup, your curveball. In backyard baseball, some of those names are the same, but some of them are like, okay, instead of a changeup, we have a slow ball. Instead of a curveball or a slider, we have the left hook and the right hook. So I just love how the game designers really dove into a game for kids by kids, taking the Seattle kid neighborhood inspiration. So I just love how they really like dove into that theme.
Yeah, I love that they're just like this ability to just pick up a game right out of the treehouse.
Exactly.
You
Yes.
can, yeah, you can start a season, and they're even really mindful and considerate of the younger, even the younger players than the young players that they're attracting to this game. Like if you have trouble hitting a ball on like off of a little tee, then they have a feature where you could just t-ball practice in the batting
Yep.
practice mode for this game.
Yes.
Um, and they, like other games before, they have a little spectator mode where you can watch the computer
Hmm.
play against itself. You could sort of sit in the bleachers and watch the fun play out.
Yes.
Um, and even though backyard baseball doesn't have a customizable feature as we've seen in previous baseball games, you're still able to find a character. And this is what I've heard from other people who look fondly on this game, is that there's a personality for every single kid character that's in here.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, they covered their bases with all the different characters and personalities and what their different skill ratings are. And I love how you mentioned how like the main menu of the game where you're trying to pick out what mode you're going to be playing is literally in a treehouse. Like, come on, how much cooler does it get? It also goes back to like those Sandlot inspirations when they're having s'mores in their own treehouse. So I just love those little touches that are in that are in backyard baseball.
yeah. So I have to hear from you. Of all the backyard baseball characters, which character do you think is you in a nutshell? I don't know if I showed them all, but like, which one speaks to your
Yeah,
heart the
I'll
most?
definitely go back to some of my favorites earlier. And Stephanie Morgan is one of my favorites for a reason because she's like me, high contact, not as much power, but, sneaky power. And then just, good defense, good speed all around. Going back to our wheels conversation from earlier, I would definitely go Stephanie Morgan.
Yeah, yeah. So to kick off, our next title
Yeah.
is Crushed Baseball. And one thing I noticed about this game is that it's a little hard to find gameplay of it because it was initially intended to be released on a couple consoles, I think
Hmm.
the Sega, but
Yeah.
when it was being worked or developed with Amaze Entertainment and published by BAM, they
Hmm.
stopped it midway and they handed it over to Summit Entertainment, I believe. Let me double check that name. I think it's Summit Soft, but they handed it off midpoint, and they could only release it, or they decided to release it on the Game Boy Advance. So we don't see as many people playing Crushed Baseball as the other titles.
Right.
Yeah, but it's still a unique baseball video game because you start to see those more realistic players.
Right, you actually get like full size people. Like these aren't kids, these aren't like 8-bit characters, or at least full size people kind of shrunken down to fit that 8-bit pixel or maybe a 64-bit pixel. But now you're actually seeing, more than a 64-bit character that actually looks the size proportionally of real life human beings.
Right, and you could still customize your characters.
Hmm.
And this is sort of like an early premonition of the demands that future baseball video games that we cover are sort of hearing from their fans.
Right.
They want to see more MLB affiliated content. So they want to
Hmm.
see more games featuring MLB legends. And we see that with, not to spoil the fun with MLB The Show, but we see some of those female baseball legends come out in that game, and
Mhm.
we don't see it as far as I know in earlier games. So I think that's what will make our final title most unique against all the others in
Mhm.
the lineup. Would you agree?
I would absolutely agree. Yeah, you kind of see, I know Backyard Baseball, to go back a little bit, was able to get some licenses for professional players in their other sport modes, or even so, baseball as well. I don't recall exactly who they got licensed. But yes, as we're kind of progressing and aging, now it's been 15 years of baseball video games that we've gone through. None of them have really had, besides Backyard Baseball, official MLB licensed players. And now in Crush Baseball, now that we're seeing, proportionally sized human being graphics, it's like, oh, hey, now I want to see who I root for on the field also as a playable character in my baseball video game.
Yeah, and to make a correction on something I said earlier,
Yeah.
so Crushed Baseball was originally set for the PS2 and the GameCube in
Mm.
2002. And they planned to release it the next year, but it was canceled again shortly after.
Mm.
And BAM Entertainment pretty much folded after that, as far as I know. I don't know if they had a
Gotcha.
comeback. But
Yeah.
Kryptonite Games uh, picked it up and they would develop it for the Game Boy Advance, and then Summit Soft would publish it. So I did get the Summit Soft right, but it was Kryptonite
Yeah,
who
you
ended
got
up
that.
developing it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so like I said, we don't see it on as many consoles, which is probably a reason why we don't see as much playthrough with this game. Um, I'm trying to think of other unique things with this game. This was probably one of the most challenging ones to kind of research. But from what I've seen, it had four modes: an
Hmm.
exhibition mode, a practice mode, a two-player mode, and a league. And in the league, you could create your custom players. You can customize your lineups, and you
Hmm.
could compete in a season. How long that season was, I'm not sure. If somebody played the game, go ahead and let me know in the chat how the league play was.
And we're kind of seeing with these last couple of titles with Crush Baseball and Backyard Baseball, as opposed to the title before it, Super Baseball 2020, where it didn't really have that seasonal focus. It was just based on, 3 game series at a time. Now we're seeing developers in the game design be like, oh, okay, maybe people do want to have the option to play a full season however they wish to define it. I think in Backyard Baseball, it's just a few months, so maybe 15-ish games. I'm trying to remember correctly. And then here, we don't know exactly how much a season is, but now we're trying to dive into a little bit of customization, a little bit of personality, and then now you can start stretching the play into a full season if you wish, as one of the mode options.
Right. Ashley, I think for this next one, I think you have full control of this one. So I'm going to trust you to take the helm on it if you allow me.
For sure, that will be Mario Super Sluggers, released in 2008. This is one of my favorite Mario games, video games, period. I have many great memories of going over to my best friend Abby's house to play this game. I believe it was only available on the GameCube and the Wii. But of course, you have all the Mario characters that you were able to play with. Similarly to Backyard Baseball, they each have their own little personalities. Therefore, they each have their own little skills and attributes that differentiate them from each other. And then, additionally, to speak of 30 years of women in baseball, we have Princess Peach as well as Princess Daisy as playable characters for Mario Super Sluggers. So they were not excluded. They were very well in here. Peach, I want to say, was one of the best pitchers of the game, and Daisy was pretty solid on her own as a hitter on the other side of the diamond.
So do you think that some of the criticisms about this being a Wii game and the Wii mode not
Yeah.
being very trackable with this game are valid?
Yeah, the Wii mode is hard. I mean, I know we don't have it on this list, but Wii Sports Baseball was impeccable because your Wii remote literally just was the baseball bat. But when you also have different characters involved, characters with different attributes involved, your strike zone is a lot smaller in Mario Super Sluggers than what it is in Wii Sports Baseball. I can definitely believe that the controller was possibly a little inhibiting for some people to enjoy.
And do you hold it against this game that it only had an exhibition feature and the rest of it is mainly just Mario, Super Mario, Princess Peach, and Princess Daisy related content? I mean, it's the whole Mario cast. You kind of only
Right,
get an
yeah. So it's
exhibition
like
game.
yes, yeah. That's the give and take where it's relying more on the fantasy Mario world, with just a little bit of some baseball implication to it. So in my opinion, it makes sense that it's only an exhibition based mode, because it's more so about the characters and story of Mario and how they're expanding in the sport of baseball. I know we have like Mario Tennis. Going forward, there might have been another sports Mario game, if not. But the early 2000s was really like the expansion of Mario and all of its different little titles. So the fact that Mario even expanded in like the sports world, I personally view as a huge win, especially because, I mean, it's baseball. How can you not view that as a win?
Oh yeah, and like you said, it wasn't the only Mario baseball game, and that's just kind
Yeah,
of been the story of compiling this list is that you uncover sequels and
yes,
unreleased content here and there. And if we have time at the end, we'll probably mention some of those unreleased titles that we know a bit more about. But I wanted to show you
absolutely.
a bit of how the game looks, and maybe this will bring back a little bit of nostalgia for you.
Let's do
Though.
it.
I know. I'm
Like,
just
oh
watching the
my God.
balls.
Like, look at this.
Oh, there's a strike. Oh
I
my
love that.
gosh.
Like,
How did that even
I don't
happen?
know. Were you even trying?
I
oh,
would.
here we go.
There
It's
were
gal
so many
against gal.
gal against gal.
It's
Oh
gal
my
against
gosh.
gal.
So
Peach
these
is a good pitcher, you guys.
these gals aren't the best at hitting, or maybe I just stink. Oh no, the
I
redhead,
think-
look at her.
I
self-deprecating.
think you just stink.
I do stink. Literally,
We'll see when Peach is up to bat. Maybe I'll
literally
eat
and
my words.
figuratively, I stink.
Yeah.
I stink.
No, she smells all right, you guys.
You're going down.
okay,
Heidi.
okay. Come on now.
Did this game foster toxic levels of competition between you and some of your friends?
Oh, 100%, which is like just the irony of it, because like again, you're playing with fun cartoon Mario characters, in exhibition like mode. It's not even supposed to be like ultimately competitive, yet we made it competitive. We made it fun, and especially with all the different like obstacles that can like occur in like the outfield or the infield, or how like the field might change. Not as frequent, but that was always very very fun to kind of mess with your whoever you were playing on the couch with at the time.
Right. And I mean, what would you have to say about the Mario content on the side just in general? Would you say it's top notch? Is that something we can evaluate here and rank it across other Mario games?
Oh yeah, I would definitely agree. I mean, how can you not appreciate and enjoy Mario games? For me, Mario Super Sluggers, Mario Superstars, they're both are on top of my list. I'm a huge Paper Mario fan, so maybe that beats it out a little bit.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, it's a pretty superb Mario game. They just continue to hit title after title.
And I, just like myself, or just like my brothers and everybody else, we have fond memories of playing just the original Super Mario's on the NES.
Oh yeah, exactly. We had the N64, so we had like Mario Party and just Paper Mario and Mario Sunshine. So much fun.
Yeah. So let's kick off our next title, Super Mega Baseball 2014. And with this game, you're going to see a lot of repeat because Super Mega Baseball is the one that had the most sequels. And you'll see them kind of get
total, I believe.
better and better.
Yeah.
And what the Super Mega Baseball series is known for is just being very zany and very goofy. All of the players that are in the game have super mega personalities.
Pun intended.
Yeah. What MLB players, what AAG PBL or any women baseball players would you say have super mega personalities?
Oh, that's such a good question. I mean, if you want to go fictionally, you have Dottie, the catcher, from A League of Their Own, which is based upon the real life All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. You, of course, have Tony Stone, who had some pretty unmatched grit throughout her playing career. And you gotta have some super mega personalities if you're gonna play a male-dominated sport.
And one of the players from the Colorado Silver Bullets, the all-female pro team, that just from reading the history of the league,
Right.
one of them caught my eye because it was one player. I think it wasn't. Was it Stacy Sonny? It was a player
I'm not too
who.
familiar.
It was a player who competed in Gladiator before joining the team. So
Oh, dang.
Gladiator was an old show in the 80s where it was like an
Hmm.
obstacle course, kind of like Ninja Warrior, where
Right.
men and women would compete against male and female bodybuilders and all these challenges. And she was the one that made it to the end of everybody that competed. So to hear a
Dang.
player that just has this super mega crazy prequel to them even entering baseball is just, I think that's super mega enough.
Oh, absolutely. That's hardcore.
I mean, look at the company that developed it. They Metalhead Software. That just sounds like a really crazy super mega name for a company. What sort of unique things would you have to say about this one title? I know we have a series of it coming up. Just to prelude, what's one unique thing that kind of stands out for you with this game?
Yeah, it's more so it's digging Super Mega Baseball has really been digging into like the nuance of baseball, especially different animations depending on where you're playing positionally, whether it's different jumps, dives, wall catches, or maybe wall misses, power swings, throws, cutoffs. They're really diving into the nitty-gritty footwork animation of what makes a baseball play.
Yeah, and like I said, this game is full of a lot of personality, a lot of humor. You'll see players scratching their butts. You'll see them getting knocked out by the ball. You'll see a lot of slapstick comedy in this entire series. And that continues with a sequel to the Super Mega Baseball series, Super Mega Baseball 2. Now we're reaching towards more realism. What's awesome about the sequel? I mean, what do you think makes it 1% better than the original?
Yeah, you're starting to get a little better graphics from Super Mega Baseball 1 to Super Mega Baseball 2. You're starting to have a little bit more customization or more real life baseball field. Now, given it was a 4-year time period, that's a pretty substantial jump to make things even better. So to add more, velocity to pitches, different character builds and types, that you are going to see a bit of more of a contrast than maybe it's future sequels that are 2 to 3 years apart versus that 4-year length of time.
Yeah, and one of the things that people kind of say about Super Mega Baseball 2, if you're getting into the nitty gritty, is
Yeah.
that the computer engine that's running this game jumps the gun a bit. It will attempt to just run on any ball that enters into the field.
Interesting. I like it. Aggressive base running. No.
Yeah, a little bit overkill. There's always a little bit too much of
Mhm.
anything. And because of that AI, sometimes it can feel like you don't know when to take over from the computer or not.
That would
Yeah,
make sense.
yeah. And the only other thing that kind of is noticed about this game, as far as just like the little improvements that could be made with it,
Yeah.
is that the contact swings kind of feel they feel a little sluggish. I'm not sure what to
Yeah.
make of that exactly.
Hmm.
And then we get to Super Mega Baseball 3. Look, somebody built an entire team out of customizable players from this series.
Yeah. a lot more user control here, which is pretty cool to see. You have a little bit more flexibility, like you can sign some free agents, you can also kick people off your team. Again, going back to this baseball card collecting theme as we have throughout this episode, you can view your players in a baseball card-like format. So just a little bit of tying, reality to virtual.
Yeah, exactly. That's what stood out to me as a feature I hadn't seen in titles before is you're seeing female baseball players have their own player cards, even holographic and special edition cards. And Jackie Slam is the name I hear repeated as like the GOAT.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you have a Jackie Slam...
That's a pretty super mega last name. Your last name is Slam? Okay, I'm thinking homers and more importantly, Grand Slam homers.
You reminded me, every single character in this game, they have a really super mega awesome cool name.
Yes.
So you'll see a lot of names like that. You'll see like Fiona, maybe not Fiona Clark, but you'll see other names that are just like off the wall. Like, where did they come up with this name?
Oh yeah, just looking at the thesaurus, what kind of awesome names can we get? And they did a pretty good job.
So a couple bullet points about this game as far as like what people think really knocked it out of the park. You can sign free agents. You can kick players off your team as always. That's nothing new. You can develop your players' strengths over time, so nothing static. And there's a bit of unpredictability to this game that makes it feel a bit more realistic. Although the one downside I will say is that you can't trade directly with teams.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if they just have kind of like this is a version of the game that I'm not super familiar with, but it makes me wonder that if there's some sort of like pool that you have to trade from rather than like teams specifically.
Yeah, and the one mode, I'm saying this just because it was a little hard to research this game also, is they only had a franchise mode as far as I know.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So moving on to our next title, the last in this series. Now we get to the peak realism of Super Mega Baseball 4.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
This one is fun.
What memories do you have of this one?
Yeah, one of my good friends, Britt, although customization isn't new for the Super Mega baseball world, but this copy, because of how, again, more and more realistic each of the iterations are getting, my friend Britt made like my whole friend group on his active roster, and he goes through and he's able to play a franchise of just us all on a team together where he can customize, what are our names, our numbers, our attributes. So it's always cool to get it down to like the little nitty gritty details that Mega Baseball 4 provides.
Yeah, and with this game you see franchise modes, exhibition modes as always. If you see a baseball game, for the most part, you're going to see a lot of things that remind you of baseball. And you're going to see a couple, little extra added twists in I think it was either the Crushed Baseball series or maybe the first Super Mega Baseball, but you could have an orca on your team. I'm not talking a person whose name is orca. I'm talking a literal killer whale could be a player on your team.
That is amazing, and that's a hidden gem I didn't even know, and now I need to see that.
So one of the awesome things about this game is that since EA Sports acquired Metalhead in 2021, there was now more of that freedom to introduce legends to the game. I'm trying to remember the name of some of the players. It's not coming to the top of my head, but I think you had Pop.
Yeah, I feel like David Ortiz was on that list.
David Ortiz.
Could be
that's
wrong.
who I was drawing a blank on. But as far as like the little things, like I said, this is true of every single game we cover. You can have some obnoxious manager moments, especially during short seasons. You might know what they mean by that more than I do. What do you think is an obnoxious manager moment?
I mean, honestly, I feel like you're gonna get some heated conversations with the manager coming out on the field, talking to the umpire, kicking the darts.
Oh yeah,
Just a little bit more
classic.
personality, you know?
Yeah, awesome. I think for me, it seems like the Super Mega Baseball series was the one that was. I don't know if this is like too big of a word to put it, but it was like the most zany, the most most fantastic, most imaginative game in
Yeah.
our series. The one that just said, you know what, let's take out what we think a baseball game should be. Let's just throw a whale in there, and then let's just like not start knocking people out with like baseballs.
Definitely more fantasy elements, yes.
Yeah, let's just make every single character look like a bobblehead bobbling around the field, rounding the
Hmm.
bases. And so now there's only one left in our lineup. And this is
We
one
made
I
it.
think you we brought the person on for this.
Right. Just a little biased toward this title, just a little.
Yeah, just a little biased towards this. But this is MLB The Show 24. Women Pave Their Way Mode. I mean,
Women pave their way.
what was it like sitting on this stage with Kelsey Whitmore and Olivia Pichardo to make the experience of women playing baseball as realistic as possible? You're going to get the spotlight on this one. I can't take this from you.
I'll take it. It's just incredible. This was a project that took many, many years in the making to even pull off. Because this is the first time that we can officially say we had women in a MLB licensed baseball video game. Of all of the games we have discussed up until this point, none of them had a MLB licensed partnership. Although they had some players, the player association is slightly different with current active MLB licensing partnerships. So we knew, because we're integrating them into the road to the show mode, you got to do it right. You have to do your research, you have to take your time. And two of the people we were able to talk to throughout this process was Kelsey Whitmore and Olivia Pichardo, that I had the honor of sharing a stage with earlier this past year in 2024 at the All-Star Game in Texas, where we were interviewed about our own experiences personally about being women in baseball. I mean, they are players. We have Kelsey that plays professional ball. She was at the Stanton Island Ferry Hawks for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Now she's currently playing for the Oakland Ballers. She actually just wrapped up her first season as a pitcher with the Oakland Ballers. And then, of course, Olivia Picardo is the first woman to be playing a D1 baseball at Brown University. So it's just so cool to see these very accomplished women in their own rights. I'm sandwiched in between them. And then I was able to share my experience and speak on the behalf of the teams who have dedicated all of their time the past couple of years to pull this off.
So you're the leader of the Sand Squad. Tell us a story of like what went behind you creating your content channel.
No, absolutely. It goes back to, hey, the title that had 2020 in it. I had always been a huge MLB The Show fan, been playing it for many, many, many years. And I started playing the little Road to the Show mode, but then I also do a lot of Diamond Dynasty. I know it's a little bit of a tangent. But because of the pandemic, not a lot was going on. You couldn't really see people. We were at our homes. I was wrapping up my semester of college virtually on Zoom University, we like to call. So as the spring semester was winding down, MLB The Show hosted a players league, a players tournament, where one baseball player from every single team competed against each other with MLB The Show. And as we were talking about earlier, I was a writer for Southside Sox at the time, so I talked to my
Mm-hmm.
boss and I was like, "Hey, we don't have any real life baseball games to kind of talk about right now. What if I watched Lucas Giolito's Twitch streams and wrote recaps, similar to how we would write a recap of an actual baseball game going on?" And my boss was like, "Go for it, do it." That gained a lot of traction. Lucas's dad, Rick, followed every single one of my articles, which is awesome. Lucas started reading the articles himself, which is amazing. San Diego Studio, the studio that publishes MLB The Show, had seen the articles that they actually gifted me the game MLB The Show. Just a nice quick thank you. Thank you for being a fan of the Players League tournament. I was still playing on previous versions of MLB The Show at the time because 20 had just come out. I want to say in around that April time period. So once college wrapped up, the Players League wrapped up, I was like, well, what am I gonna do? So I went live on Twitch, like Lucas had gone live on Twitch to play his games and gave it a shot and played MLB The Show, and gained a pretty big following pretty quickly, which I will forever be grateful and fortunate for. These people are amazing. That because I had such a vastly growing community, I was like, I need a name for my community here. So no surprise, my last name is Sanders. I like some alliterations. I like some puns. I'm like, what can I call them instead of just like, hey, Twitch chat? I just feel like that's very impersonal. So I was like, what if I called them the Sand Squad? Part of my last name because they're in my little community. Then Squad because we're a team, we're a squad, we're a family. And the Sand Squad came to be on May 8th, 2020. And we're approaching 5 years this May, which is wild to think about.
And you started your own White Sox career in this game. What was it like to literally play as a character that was made by you to look like you and represent your experience?
Yeah, it's hard not to be emotional, to be honest, to talk about this. It still gives me goosebumps to this day, because again, you can make your customizable woman character in the mode Road to the Show, which is your journey from the minors to the majors, from draft night to obviously making your debut, and then however long your career might last. So I would play this mode as Ash Sanders when it was just men players, which just felt so ingenuine. I couldn't, as much as I enjoyed it, I'm like, that's not me. Like, my nickname is Ash, but like, I am a woman. I'm not this male ball player. So to actually be able to sit down and make Ashley Sanders with the 22 on her back, the White Sox on her chest, was literally something indescribable, and something that was a long time coming.
So we can't talk about MLB The Show without talking about one of the legends that this game
Oh yeah.
tells the story of, Tony Stone. Uh, do you want to fight over who gets to tell the story of where Tony Stone comes from?
You are more than welcome. Go for it.
All right. So Tony Stone, she in 1953, she played for the Kansas City Monarchs, taking over for the place of another baseball great, Hank Aaron. So
She actually played for the Indianapolis Clowns.
yeah, she originally played for the Indianapolis Clowns, and I think there's a correction there. I think it was the Indianapolis Clowns where she picked up the place from Hank Aaron.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, that's my other correction for the night. Yeah, but this game kind of shares her kind of story so well, and it gave me chills seeing that kind of story tied back to a player that's coming from an era before AAGPBL.
Yes.
So, what was it like developing or helping to work on Tony Stone?
Right, yeah, it was wonderful. Similarly to Women Pave Their Way Road to the Show, I wasn't on the direct team. However, I partnered with them a lot. Same for the storylines team where Tony Stone originates, and then you can also play with her in our Diamond Dynasty mode, which is my cup of tea. But it was just so incredibly cool to see the process of her character coming to life in the game, from all the little details of what is her face looking like, is she wearing any jewelry? We wanted to be as historically accurate as possible, and Tony Stone did like to wear jewelry and have a little bit of some like feminine characteristics in her play. She wore her hair down under her cap, while she played. Everything from like opinions on what her character body was looking like to make sure it was appropriate and actually representative of what her body looked like in real life. The texture of her hair, getting the correct color of her skin correctly to be as close to real life as possible. Just the attention to detail and care and the ability to kind of see stage by stage, helping with the approval process to continue and go was something I was very honored to be a part of and very pleased to be a part of.
Awesome. So you literally created content that plays this game over and over and over again. So what of the a million bajillion ways to play this game, the modes are there? How could you summarize that if you had to?
Oh my goodness, that's a great question. I was think not quite rapid fire, but
Go
there's
down a
five
rabbit hole if you
modes.
need to on the
That's true.
modes.
Five modes essentially. So the mode we've been talking about the most in all this is Road to the Show, and that is you are put into baseball and you make your own character. You customize your character as much as you like, male or female, and then you are able to go from the draft combine to the minor leagues to the major leagues and experience your journey of baseball. Then you have the franchise mode, which is a mode we've been talking about a lot, which is you take over one of your favorite Major League Baseball teams. You then have a mode called March to October, which is basically a smaller, more condensed version of franchise. If you don't have time to play a whole 162 season, March to October kind of crunches that down a little bit. Fourth on the list would be Diamond Dynasty. That's where I come in a whole lot. And that is your card collecting mode. How can you take the superstars of today, the legends of the past, and create as well-rounded and elite of a squad as possible? Tony Stone, of course, available to be on that squad. And then lastly, where Tony Stone originates from, also an area I do some decent amount of work in, is the storylines mode, which was first introduced in MLB The Show 23. We're going on the third season when MLB The Show 25 comes out, and that is being more historic and representative of the Negro Leagues that existed in tandem with and before Major League Baseball, and putting honor and tribute to those legends who found their way to Major League Baseball. Some of them didn't find their way to Major League Baseball, and we just have an excellent partnership with Bob Kendrick, who is the president of the Negro Leagues Museum down in Kansas City, Missouri. So to have his insight and storytelling to pay honor and respect to these legends has been a thrill.
And I'll tell you, when the news came out that they were starting to admit the Negro Leagues to the Major League Baseball League, in my head I was like, wait a minute. I know Tony Stone was a player in there, so if they bring in all those players, they have to bring in Tony Stone. There's no way they can gloss over her. So I was telling this to like my family, to my friends. They have to admit Tony Stone. There's no way around it. If they're bringing in the entire league, they can't bounce around that. She took over for Hank Aaron. How would you possibly gloss over that?
Huge shoes to fill, and she did it mighty well.
Yeah. So I know there's a part of Pave the Way mode where, like we said, you get to play as a baseball player, the first woman who gets to play in the Major League Baseball, MLB.
Yeah.
And there's some heart-to-heart moments you have with players kind of sharing what that experience is like in the game. Can you kind of describe what that's like for your player?
Yeah, absolutely. So in tandem with your own woman baseball player in Women Pave Their Way Road to the Show, you are also experiencing your Road to the Show journey alongside your best friend, your childhood best friend, Mia Lewis. And all throughout your journey from the draft combine to the minor leagues to eventually when you make it to the major leagues, Mia is alongside with you. You're having countless interactions with her, from whether it's facing her because she is a pitcher, if you are a hitter, on the diamond, whether it's text or calls or little updates. She'll, not to spoil it too much, but she'll let you know, like, congratulations when you make the major leagues, congratulations or where you were drafted after the draft combine. So that sort of community and female friendship was definitely expressed as well as we possibly could this year. But then also, not to mention, like, the male allyship. Male allyship is what helps make women playing baseball possible. And there's a lot of wonderful interactions with your male teammates all around the clubhouse, on the field, which is also really cool to see.
Awesome. And I couldn't agree more. And I have one more question to kind of tie this whole breakdown for us. But who are those people? Who is that one person that after you got to work with the Southside Sox writing, or after you got to work with Sony, messaged you, called you, talked with you, like Mia, talking with her friend, had that heart-to-heart moment with you?
Right. It's hard to pinpoint it to just one person because I've been very fortunate and grateful enough to have such very close friends and family. So if I may stretch the question a little to call out a few, but my best friends, Amanda, Caroline, and Abby, my sister Allie. I have a wonderful friend group with T-Red is his nickname. We call him Bunk. His nickname, we call him Mason, Britt, and Rachel. Then no disrespect to all of them. They're wonderful human beings. But my mom, above all, she is always unbelievably proud. And it's so cool because she's the one that kind of started this all for me, that made me a baseball fan, that has me loving the White Sox as much as I am, and somebody who always encouraged me of, yeah, I can do anything that anybody of however somebody else might identify can also do. It's just a matter of, can you put in the time? Can you put in the effort? Can you do the hard work? Then you're fit for the job, kind of a deal. So my mom is always my biggest cheerleader. Whenever anything comes out on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, from whether it's from my own channels, Southside Sox, the White Sox, MLB The Show, Sony San Diego Studio, she's one of the first people to like text me, call me right away. And it's always fun too, because you're working on a video game and a bunch of things are happening, things are coming out, like we're under NDA, so I can't always tell her what exactly I'm working on. But when it is finally released to the public and she sees it, the conversations are always some of my favorites.
I gotta double down on agreeing with what you said about just having that person that believes in you more than anybody else. Like, even when they've seen you like fall on your face, even when they've seen you like rise to the top. And for me, one of the people that kind of encouraged me and stood by me the most has to be my dad. Always parents, but yeah. Oh, yes. My dad had a tendency or a belief in just believing in us beyond reason. And yeah, it's hard to not, have him here. And I just know that, that we're all making him proud. And that's just what your experience reminded me of, is that person that brings back so many memories and believes in you in every pursuit you do.
Yes.
So do you think we tied this list in a way? Like I said, there were a couple titles that just kept getting pulled out. There were sequels upon sequels.
So many.
Yeah, undelivered content too. I believe there was also a Charlie Brown baseball title that didn't get released, but we had enough information about it to kind of say what it was like. I didn't bring that here, but I'll try to share as many links to more information about just more baseball video games featuring women and more history behind baseball video games, and just we'll open it up to the chat if they have any questions, and we'll also encourage that if you have the ability to to make a difference in a family's life down in Southern California who are affected by the wildfires. Uh, while we kind of share stories and kind of hear from you, we'll share some of those photos in the show while we hear from people. So if you have any questions for us, go ahead and field them. No pun intended.
Always intended to include that.
I mean, did you have any questions that were lingering in your mind, Ashley?
Yeah, my biggest is what inspired you to do this episode. I know we talked a little bit beforehand, but I think what you said to me, if not, if you want to elaborate even more, is quite an awesome answer. But what inspired you to try to host this episode and do the incredibly awesome amount of research that you did?
Well, the way I like to research women's history is I just sort of pull together and aggregate a lot of stuff in my notes and on my computer. And it just, because people know me as somebody who can talk about the randomest things on and on and on, I'm really good at coming up with a lot of random conversational points and random useless trivia, as people sometimes have put it, with things I talk about in general.
Right.
But in my lists, I had managed to see that there was enough little articles and notes to put together something like a list that said the history of women in baseball video games. And I said, well, it's all here. It's kind of ready to be worked. It just needs to be developed and grown and watered. I mean, why let it just sit in a repository of information? Why not like refine this and add more detail and add more perspectives and get such a great guest to talk about her experience helping to develop the most recent game that illustrates that. Mm-hmm. So the inspiration came from it kind of just grew itself, you know. The more history that kind of piles up, the more you're able to work with and turn it into something that you can share with others. And why just keep that to yourself? You know what I mean?
I love that. Gotta share the wealth of knowledge.
I mean, keep it going. You could keep asking. I asked you like a million questions. I feel like it's only fair if you keep going and yeah.
No, absolutely. So then, because we're talking women in baseball, I know you mentioned a little bit with your dad and his Dodgers influence. Would you consider yourself still like a current day Dodgers fan? If so, congratulations on the World Series. But how close to baseball do you follow? And it's okay if you don't.
Absolutely. My family is a hardcore Dodgers family. I wouldn't say I'm to the levels of maybe baseball knowledge as my brothers or my dad. For me, like even for this interview, I started really poking around baseball statistics for the first time ever, and I started reading a book called like 100 Baseball Greats to sort of immerse myself in that. But that's something I kind of always wanted to do, is kind of get into more of the knowledge base, the secret knowledge of baseball, the secret way that people talk and trade stats like they're relaying like secret codes. It's an awesome community to be a part of, and I wanted to connect with my family through that, with the memories of my dad through that. So though I'm not ready to start contributing on something like the Dodgers version of the South Side Sox, that interest is there, and that's an interest that grows with every single topic that I do with other women covering a new topic. Cool. Like with cubing, that really
right.
Yeah, exactly. That took a lot of interesting turns and discoveries, and this became something that really helped me like clear my mind. And I have to thank Livia, if she's still with us, for joining that interview or being part of that to help me make that discovery. I also had a wonderful experience talking with Hoku when I was covering Siva Afi, or fire dancing.
Yeah, I heard that episode.
Yeah, and there was a lot of heartbreak mixed in with it, but there
Hmm.
was just an incredibly fascinating history of like the Polynesian migration across this Pacific.
Right.
And if I had been able to do that interview again or extend it in another way, I would have been like, teach me Hoku, teach me how to fire knife dance.
Right. Yeah. Let me experience it.
But that takes years. I mean,
Oh
I
yes.
love every single interview I do, and I pick interviews that like kind of really speak to topics that are personal to me.
That's very awesome. So then I would say my last question is, what is your short term and maybe more so, what's your long term goal with the world as we know it podcast?
Ooh, that's a really good question because some days I don't even know how far I could take it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think I want to take it in a more community, like small community direction where we
Hmm.
start to meet people more face to face and meet with them in their towns and see their stories and see it from a more personal way and ask about like
Yeah.
what their communities are really needing. And then other times I'm like, well, more people keep coming in, the more kind of elaborate content that I kind of do with social media. And that's like a push and pull that I kind of try to resist a little bit. And sometimes it's you kind of have to go with the flow, you know.
Yeah.
So as for what the future could look like for the world as we know it, I would love to work more with the IWBC, the International Women's Baseball Center, or
Absolutely.
contribute to it. Also, to get to meet more people in Baseball for All. But just in general, the page is about women's history and kind of uncovering those stories. So I think the stories that I've been digging a little bit more into, more stories of World War II. There's a lot of stories that I've seen that cover the nursing corps, that cover the women's auxiliary force,
Hmm.
and I'm just going in and I'm saying, but like, what's in between that? Like, one of the
Yeah.
big
Reading between the
question,
lines.
yeah, one of the big questions I had was, what did the women who served during World War II do after the war ended? I think there's a long-standing belief that the women who served just returned back to the home place. But a lot of them
Right.
left with such advanced skills in the factory that
Yes.
it's hard for me to believe that they just decided to return home and didn't really uh, try their hardest to stay in their field or create
Hmm.
new opportunities for more women with the skills that they had. So
Right. Right.
that's something I've also been exploring. Um, I think I'm also trying to explore more interviews with women in technology, kind of angling more towards my career pursuit in engineering
Yeah.
and things like that. So maybe more sciencey topics will be around the corner, more technical topics. Um, Other than that, you know, it really just comes to if I see a pretty interesting topic, I'm like, let's bring them on, let's talk to them, let's try to call them up. Which I
Hey,
think
there
is
you go. I
how
love
it
that.
started with reaching out to you. I said I had been watching your show for I think maybe a year prior to that,
Hmm.
following some of your gameplay, and I was
Right.
like, who else would be perfect for this other than Ashley Sanders?
Well, thank you.
Is that a wrong evaluation? Do you think that you
I
were
would
the
say it's pretty
one?
correct. I'm honored.
Yeah, that's a very long-winded answer for a simple question, but I hope that you'll allow me to kind of share that.
Absolutely. No, that's wonderful. And I appreciate that answer. And I just want to thank you for your time here. This has been an absolute wonderful episode. And I hope you give yourself all the credit in the world for the dedication and time it took to pull off an episode like this. And I'm very, very excited to see how you're going to continue to grow in the future because you will continue to grow.
Thank you. And I really appreciate all the research that you provided and giving me more resources to look at and just helping make this possible. Like, this wasn't just a me effort, this was a Sand Squad effort too.
Hey, yes, you did there. I love it.
Yeah. Well, everyone, thank you for coming out. Like I said, everything that you're contributing, if you can, is going to help families that are really in need right now. And we're going to continue to kind of push for them as much as possible to get that help that they need. Anything that you'd like to share, Ashley? Just any closing messages?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. I definitely agree. If you can and you are able, regardless of how much you're able to contribute to all these different GoFundMes and efforts to help the families in the LA community, I highly encourage you. I would also encourage you, if you're especially like located in the area, to be willing to maybe foster some of the animals that have also been displaced from their homes and haven't yet maybe reconnected with their owners. Just any way that you can, whether it's monetary, whether it's your time, whether it's through donation, to help rebuild the community in the Southern California area.
Awesome. Well, everybody, thank you for coming out. It was wonderful. If you stayed in from the very beginning, we really appreciate it. And look forward to more episodes and interviews in the future where we talk with more women with incredible stories. Ashley Sanders, thank you for coming out.
Thank you so much for having me, Zach.